continues to roll out brand new drinks, including the Yosemite, which is white chocolate and roasted marshmallow. Doesn't that sound amazing? You can find Strange Brew at 1101 University Boulevard, right there on the Strip at the University of Alabama campus. And hey, did you know that you can get Strange Brew delivered to your door? Check out StrangeBrewCoffeehouse.com for all the Strange Brews bags of coffee, K-Cups, mugs, shirts, and a whole lot more right there at StrangeBrewCoffeehouse.com. Today on the Stingray Show, we are going to take you back in time to the late 90s and early 2000s in the WWE, because we are going to talk with the guy who is the longest reigning WWE champion in SmackDown TV history, a wrestling god. That and a whole lot more coming up on this edition of the Stingray Show right here on Tide 100.9.
Hey guys, this is John Layfield here. At one time, the longest rating WWE champion in SmackDown television history. One half the APA, 100% wrestling god. They're wrestling legends. There's Hall of Famers. There's world champions. There's even icons, but there's one and only one. Wrestling god. Proud to be on Tide 100.9 with Stephen and Heath, having a lot of fun with these guys, talking about what is important in life, and that is Texas beating Oklahoma. See, when Oklahoma plays Oklahoma State, I hope they both lose. We need a wall between Texas and Oklahoma to keep the Okies out of the promised land. But if they make it through customs and come down to the promised land, they're going to go back a long trip. It's going to be sad. It's going to be so sad going back to Oklahoma to your little bingo parlors and all your little places. And God bless Texas.
Hi, this is Tim Brando with a reminder. Those of you on Tide 100.9, look out. You're about to feel the buzz of Stingray.
This is Stephen Ray, a.k.a. Stingray, coming to you live from Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
I'm Heath Hopkins. I'm here in DeSoto County, Mississippi, right outside of Memphis, Tennessee. You know, Mark, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you feel that responsibility to pay it forward and give some kid a chance coming up in the ranks, kind of like Tony did for you?
Why do you think I'm talking to Stingray tonight?
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
No, I mean, look, no.
Hey, Stingray, here's the deal. When you get involved with Texas, it's like getting married to a stripper. and let me explain this. It looks good, kind of sexy on the surface. Yeah, but then you get the baggage, you get the drama, you get all that eventually comes with it. And that's what you get with Texas, and that's what the Big 12 learned.
And Heath, any thoughts on our show moving forward?
Hey, to everyone in Tuscaloosa listening here on Tide 100.9. With the Stingray Show, if you don't like it, you better learn to love it, because it's the best show going today, baby. Woo!
Welcome inside another edition of the Stingray Show right here on Tide 100.9. And let me just go on ahead and say hello to my co-host over in Olive Branch, Mississippi, also in Hernando, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Heath Hopkins. Heath, how are you doing on this episode, sir?
Stephen, how are you, brother?
Man, I am absolutely thrilled beyond belief about this episode today.
Wow, Stephen, it's like we haven't had a Hall of Famer on the show before.
I know, but I mean, this one is going to be over the top. Now, of course, we did have Eric Bischoff on a little bit earlier, but now we are about to talk with the longest reigning WWE champion in SmackDown TV history. He is also a former football player, a retired professional wrestler, American businessman, television personality, and is also featured regularly on Fox News Channel and Fox Business Network. And he was inducted here recently into the WWE Hall of Fame. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. John Bradshaw Layfield. Mr. Layfield, thank you so much for joining us today.
I have no possible chance of living up to that introduction, but thank you very much for those kind words.
Yes. So I've got to ask you, obviously we're on the air right here in Tuscaloosa. And when I first reached out to you, you said that your dad was a huge Bear Bryant fan and an Alabama fan. Talk about that briefly, please.
Oh yeah, my dad passed away a couple of years ago, but he lived to be 88 years old. But he loved college football. In fact, he was at the Cotton Bowl, one of the first dates he ever had with my mom when the guy came off the bench back in the 50s. And my dad was there for that game in the Cotton Bowl. But he loved Paul Bear Bryant. I don't know what it was about Paul Bear Bryant. I don't know because he started at Texas A&M or what it was, but he loved Bear Bryant. He just always talked about how that man did it right. That man was a college coach. He just revered Paul Bear Bryant. So I grew up being an Alabama fan as well. Now I loved my Texas Longhorns now. So loved Run and Earl Campbell, the Tyler Rose. I loved all those guys. But I'm a big Alabama fan.
Yes.
You know, I believe, I remember seeing this. I think you could probably find it on YouTube somewhere. But that guy that ran off the bench, I can't remember his name. He was the captain. And they brought him on the Ed Sullivan Show to find out why he did it. And his answer was great. I was so filled with Alabama, I just couldn't take it.
Yeah,
that's why he came off the bench and made that tackle.
My dad was sitting on the other side of the field and said he had a perfect view of it. He said he could see the guy get off the bench and everything and come across and make the tackle.
That's amazing.
One of the craziest events ever. It was, it was one of those lures of college football.
Now, you played a little college football yourself. You were a Wildcat at Abilene Christian, correct?
Sure was. I grew up right near Abilene, grew up in Sweetwater, Texas, and back then, you had two sports. You had football and spring football. That was about it. We didn't have baseball. We didn't have baseball because they thought the kids would play baseball instead of spring football. It was that bad. And so I went to my college that I wanted to go to right near me. My dad had taught a little bit at Abilene Christian and got to go there for 4 years, and very fortunate, blessed in the College Hall of Fame there and on their All-Century team named a couple of years ago.
Who were some of the guys you played against that maybe went on that we might know?
John Randall. Randall we went to Trinity Valley Community College. A good guy. I follow him now on Instagram. He's a big Stone Cold Steve Austin fan. I saw him up in Minnesota, and I played right tackle. He played left tackle. He broke every sack record there was, and he was the player of the year. And I thought if I could move to left tackle, I could play well against John, that maybe I could steal some of those honors from him. And in the second quarter, I catch a helmet on my knee brace, and it snapped my ankle in half. Ooh. And I tried to play the rest of the game. I actually played the rest of the game, and I say tried because I didn't do a very good job. And I ended up giving up a sack to him in the third quarter. So I wish I'd have got to play 4 quarters healthy against him. He was a wonderful talent, and he might have got a sack or two anyway. But I certainly had a good time working for a whole year to play against John Randall. He was every bit, as they say. He was quite the stud. Yes. Pierce Holt. I've actually had 2 All-Pros break my leg. Pierce Holt, my freshman year, they were double teaming him because he was such a stud. He went to San Francisco 49ers, became an All-Pro, and the center blocked him over as I'm watching the linebacker, and he broke my leg straight back. And so I've had 2 All-Pros break my leg.
Yes.
That's terrible. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to laugh.
Wow. Okay. That's okay.
Well, let's go in and talk about your wrestling career. What ultimately made you decide to get into professional wrestling after your football career?
I'd always been a wrestling fan. I grew up, one of my youngest memories was my grandfather in Sweetwater, Texas, watching KTVT, Channel 11, and it was the Von Erichs. It was Fritz Von Erich before the kids debuted. And I remember like it was yesterday when Kevin first debuted. I got to catch some of the Funks wrestling. We were kind of in the middle of the Funks territory and the Von Erichs territory. So I grew up a wrestling fan. I just was hoping I'd play pro football, for my career. And then when that didn't work out, I thought I got a chance to do something that I've always wanted to do since I was a kid. And hopefully young enough and still healthy enough to play, to go into wrestling and make some money at it.
Yes.
Thinking back to those days, I always heard Steve Austin talk about the Sportatorium. Was that kind of a legendary venue for you to wrestle in?
Beyond legendary. I tell you, growing up watching Fritz and all the guys who came through Dallas, that was the one place I wanted to be. That had more appeal to me, and maybe just because of my ignorance and not having, we didn't have proliferation of cable television back then, so we didn't have, 50 channels. Right. I'd heard of Madison Square Garden, but the Sportatorium to me was the biggest venue in the world. So when I got to wrestle there, I thought this is an absolute dream come true.
Well, guys, real quick, we got to take a short break, and when we come back, we are going to continue the interview with JBL right here on Tide 100.9. You're listening to the Stingray Show. Citizens of West Alabama, have you heard the news? The Bank of Moundville, which was established way back in 1907, offers personal loans of all sizes, unsecured and secured, with competitive interest rates. You can contact them today at 205-371-2227. Once again, that is the Bank of Moundville, 205-371-2227, or go by and see them in downtown Moundville. They are an equal housing lender and a member of the FDIC. Do you guys like to fish? I know I do, and if you have a pond or lake in your backyard that needs stocking of fish, you need to contact biologist Jeff Bagwell with Honey Hole Fisheries. He can help you stock your lake with bluegill, largemouth bass, and hybrid striped bass. You can get in touch with Jeff Bagwell and Honey Hole Fisheries at 205-799-0192. Once again, that is Honey Hole Fisheries, 205-799-0192. Contact Mr. Jeff Bagwell today and let him help you build the lake of your dreams. Do you guys dream about owning a home or a condominium down on the beautiful beaches of Alabama, say Orange Beach, Gulf Shores, or maybe even Fairhope? Then let me tell you about First Class Real Estate South Home Group's owner, Celeste Hagler. She has brokers down there in the beautiful beaches of Alabama to help you purchase the home of your dreams and to live where you love in the state of Alabama. You can contact Celeste Hagler at 205-861-5698. Contact Celeste Hagler today to help you live where you love in the state of Alabama.
Under the biggest guys.
Hey, fun question. This was a bigger question back in the 70s and even 60s, but I still love asking everybody of all ages today. You could like both, but you have to pick one. Are you an Elvis guy or a Beatles guy?
Elvis.
I'm an Elvis guy.
Elvis, no doubt about it. I love the Beatles, but no doubt about it. And the more I look at Elvis now, the more I realize how great he was. Now, I loved him when I was a kid, but the more I look at him back now, that guy was, man, there's never been anything like him before or since.
And two things, and we'll move on from that, but I love the quote John Lennon said, before Elvis, there was nothing.
Yes.
And the other quote by John Lennon about Elvis, he said, I felt sorry for him more than anybody else on the earth. He goes, at least we had each other on the bus. He had nobody.
Yeah.
He was a solo act. We were a band. Yes. We could relate to each other, but he had no one to relate to. And that always touched me that he actually thought about that. I'm not the biggest John Lennon fan.
You had some compatriots there at the Beatles, and they were, one of the greatest, maybe not the greatest rock band of all time. But you had somebody to relay that your feelings to what was going on. Elvis was just Elvis. I mean, he couldn't walk down the street. I mean, the guy was this incredibly good-looking guy, but he was a striking figure. It's like Stone Cold. Walking through the airport, you can't not be Stone Cold. With the bald head and the great big body.
Right.
You kind of wish, at times when, I'm not that different of a figure, and I'm not as famous as Stone Cold or Elvis by any chance, but I can slip into a lot of places and nobody really notices. But, a guy like The Undertaker or Stone Cold or a guy like Elvis or The Rock, those guys look like that 24/7. It's one of the reasons they're such incredible stars, but it also just attracts all this attention to them. Big Show was the same way. People used to just.
Oh, he has to be.
And I don't see how it didn't drive him crazy. Everybody wanted a picture, and he was the nicest he could be. Thank goodness. We don't want an angry giant.
Right.
I was thinking that in the back of my mind when you were talking. I was like, Show couldn't go anywhere. Everybody would recognize Show immediately.
Right.
Or guys, what about Mark Henry, the world's strongest man? That's another one.
The same. Mark's this imposing figure. Now, don't know if you guys have met Mark, just one of the nicest guys in the world, and thank goodness he is. That guy, he was legitimately the world's strongest man. There's some guesses and estimations that Mark may have been the strongest guy of all time based on some of his lifts that he did. If not, he's in that conversation, which is quite amazing.
That's incredible.
I've got to ask, you keep talking about the nice guys. Who was the biggest jerk that you worked with?
As I get older, I don't want to say. The best part was there weren't that many guys that were bad guys. Right. There really wasn't a guy you thought, I just can't stand that guy. There were a couple that came around.
Let me rephrase the question. Who was the guy you didn't like at first, but you really came around and liked him a lot and like him a lot now? Who was the guy that you just kind of had the wrong impression at first, but turned out to be a great friend?
I'm not sure if it was the wrong impression or if it's just because he was such a big star that it was kind of standoffish. And I don't mean standoffish from me, because I had known what all he did in Japan, and I was probably a little bit in awe of him. That's Vader. Vader's the nicest guy in the world, just a Superman. In fact, I don't know if I told you this story before. Vader on his last pay-per-view in WWE pulled me aside and said, "Hey, I asked to work with you on the last pay-per-view," and he said, "Tonight," he said, "you're going to get the old Vader." And he says, "I'm going to come out smoking." And he did. I mean, he beat the hell out of me. Right. And he said, but he said at the end of it, he said, "You're going to kick out of my finish and you're going to beat me. And when you do, you will have beaten somebody." Yes. And a guy does something like that. I mean, that's remarkable. Yeah. That sticks with you for the rest of your life when somebody makes such a nice gesture, to you for that.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, JBL, I don't think we've ever asked you this before, and please forgive me if we have, but your catchphrase, the wrestling god, walk us through how that all came about and how much of an enjoyment it was to say it.
It's one of those things where you can't name your own finish. And you can't just go out there and say, "I'm going to have this phrase and everybody's going to like it." Right. Stone Cold named my finish, which I've told many times. I was in Europe and I hit somebody with a clothesline and he comes back and he goes, "That's not a clothesline. That's a clothesline from hell." Right. And it stuck from there. And, so I used it from that point forward. The wrestling god, we were backstage and I had already done my match and I had the Bashams with me, the two wonderful guys, Doug and Donnie, Basham. Mm-hmm. And Orlando was there. Everybody was with us, the whole cabinet. And they said, "Guys, we got to fill a little time. We're going to do a celebratory something in the back." And literally we had been sitting back there just having a couple drinks, watching the show, enjoying it. And when they put the camera on us, that's when the whole thing happened. Teddy Long was there and I said something about being a god or wrestling god. And Doug Basham goes, "You're a wrestling god." I go, "Yeah, I'm a wrestling god." It just totally happened out of the blue. Never thought about it, sticking. Never thought about it going kind of like Jerry Lawler when, he said when he got Bobby, Shane's crown later. But he said, "I'm the god of Memphis." The next week he comes out and the king of Memphis. Yes. And he says, next week he came out and everybody was calling him the Memphis King. And it's stuck with him ever since. Things got to happen organically, I think, for them to stick with you.
Where are some favorite cities of yours that you ultimately wrestled in around the country and around the world?
A lot of them were old wrestling territories because you had, guys had gone there for years. So St. Louis was always a wonderful place for us. They had this In Cahoots Cowboy Bar out by the airport where we always stayed. It was just a fun place for the boys to go after the matches. And we always enjoyed going to St. Louis. We always enjoyed going around Kansas City because Harley would come down. And a lot of times, one time Harley had us out to his house. It was just wonderful, to hang out with a legend like that. To me, Dallas was always special because I started there. And the Garden, of course, is, Bret Hart said, it may not be holy, but it's sacred. And it is. There's nothing like being in the Garden.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of great places out there. And a lot of them had to do with old wrestling territories, and what guys would come around. So you go to Minneapolis and all the old AWA guys would come out. And it was so good to see all those guys because you didn't get to see them very often. And so it was kind of a lot of these old territories where we would go back to them after the territories had died were still wonderful places to go.
A fun question on that. I'm here in Memphis, in the Memphis area, and of course, Jerry Lawler. You guys razzle him up, or do you guys are excited that he's coming back to his hometown? And what's that like backstage? Is it you poking at him all week, you're going to beat up everybody this week when we go back to Memphis, King? Or is it one of those like, hey, if you need me to work, if you need me to sell, what's that like backstage?
Guys really enjoy it because we travel so much. And when you get to work in front of your hometown, it's really special. And we understand that. And especially guys who are really big stars. And there's not a bigger star than Jerry Lawler. You know, as Jerry Jarrett would say, who else could sell out an arena 52 straight weeks? I don't know if anybody, maybe San Martino could have done that in the Garden, but Jerry's run is unparalleled. And you come back here, you love him being there because you know you're going to draw this huge crowd. I was in Tallahassee when Ron Simmons, we're tagging. And we come out. And this day, I've never heard an ovation like that. It was one of the, it just brings you goosebumps. Really? It's so crazy. Literally, at one point, I just walked to the ring and got out of the way and let Ron have all of the spotlight, which he would have never asked for. And nobody even noticed I was there. It was all about Ron Simmons, and I loved every second of it. Guys really enjoy when our buddies like that get to go back home and get ovations like that.
Well, talk about your days of joining the WWE. What was that like for you joining that company?
I'd wrestled all over the world. I'd wrestled in Japan, I don't know how many times, 20, 30 times probably. Mm-hmm. Wrestled in Mexico, wrestled in Texas. I wasn't making much money, and I wrestled in Europe. Was the first big break I got working for Autovance and Peter William over there. I'd spent 2 years over there wrestling, living in a caravan, a camper. Just outside the venue. We'd wrestle the same building 8 straight weeks, every single night, same people every night. And then I finally got the call to come to WWE in 1995. And I remember thinking I was ready. You know, back then, everybody who made it to WWE had been a champion somewhere. You know, it's kind of like professional football. You know, everybody had been an All-American somewhere. Everybody had been the stud of their college or whatever it was. And that's how it was then. And when I got there, I thought, I'm ready for this. And then that first WrestleMania, when I saw Shawn Michaels rappel from the ceiling and he and Bret Hart had that 60-minute Iron Man match, I just remember thinking, this is so far over my head. I have no business being in this company. I just remember thinking, this is beyond me. It was almost a feeling. I remember being in awe of it, but also thinking, I'm not ready for this. It was pretty overwhelming.
Well, guys, real quick, we got to take a short break, and when we come back, we are going to continue the interview with JBL right here on Tide 100.9. You're listening to the Stingray. Strange Brew Coffee House continues to roll out brand new drinks, including the Yosemite, which is white chocolate and roasted marshmallow. Doesn't that sound amazing? You can find Strange Brew at 1101 University Boulevard right there on the Strip at the University of Alabama campus. And hey, did you know that you can get Strange Brew delivered to your door? Check out StrangeBrewCoffeehouse.com for all the Strange Brews bags of coffee, K-Cups, mugs, shirts, and a whole lot more right there at StrangeBrewCoffeehouse.com. Are you guys in the mood for community goods and great barbecue? That's what you'll find at the Coker Market, located in Coker, Alabama at the four-way intersection off of County Road 140. Their hours of operation are Wednesday through Saturday, 11 a.m. until 7 p.m., and their menu items include the Midnight, which is smoked ham, smoked pork, Swiss cheese, Creole mustard, mayonnaise, and a pickle, grilled on French bread. That sandwich is absolutely amazing. Make sure you go and check out the Coker Market right there at the four-way intersection in Coker for amazing food and community goods. Your life can change on a dime, and if you are relocating for your job up to the Rocket City of Huntsville, the fastest growing city in the state of Alabama, you need to contact Celeste Hagler of First Class Real Estate South Home Group. She has brokers all over North Alabama to help you get settled with buying a new home in North Alabama. You can contact her at 205-861-5698. Once again, that is Celeste Hagler, 205-861-5698. Contact Celeste Hagler today to live where you love in the state of Alabama, even in the Rocket City of Huntsville. And we are back here on Tide 100.9 here on the Stingray Show with JBL. And John, I've got to ask you, what throughout all of your career as a wrestler, what is one storyline that you thought would be $1 million idea that you honestly never got to do?
That's a great question. I had an idea with Del Rio one time when Del Rio was hot. and it didn't work out. I had a picture one time of Ted DiBiase, me, and Alberto Del Rio, and I said 3 generations of stolen gimmicks. And I thought it'd be so great to be out there with Del Rio because he was such a good worker, such a good looking guy. And, we could, he was such a great heel. And I forgot what happened. I don't remember what happened to him. For some reason, it got pitched, but it never did come to fruition.
Wow. Well, I talked about your favorite guys to work with, but who is the absolute easiest guy to work with?
Easiest guy to work with, Ricky and Robert. No doubt about it. Ricky and Robert were a dream. They were so over, and they were such a good tag team, and you couldn't even feel them. I mean, they were tough guys, but you couldn't even feel them. I mean, they were a complete night off. They'd go, whatever you want to do. They'd go, if you want to say, let's go 10 minutes, let's go 2 hours. They'd do it, and they would do it fantastically. And they were a dream to work with.
Really?
Yeah, and just fantastic. They could make anybody look good. They were such a good tag team. I don't know, I don't know where they rank on, Mount Rushmore of tag teams, but those guys are on it. I don't know where they rank in that top 4, but they're on it.
Well, let me ask you this. Okay. Who's the worst guy to work with?
I don't think I had guys that were just, and I don't want to, I wouldn't say if, and bury somebody that, start up an internet feud.
Very respectable.
I really didn't have many guys that were that tough to work with. People talked about Vader. Vader was a dream to work with. He was stiff, really stiff. But man, he took it the same way. He was a dream to work with. I mean, there were a lot of guys. I worked with Nathan Jones, and I enjoyed Nathan. He was not a guy. He was so freaking big. I remember telling him one time, I said, Nathan, if you just trust me, I promise you, I'm going to make you look really good. And from that point forward, he was perfect. Now he hit you so hard that he hit me across the back one time, and I thought he broke my ankles. He hit me so hard. He was the strongest human being. And that was tough to work with because he was so big and strong. But he was also a pretty good athlete. Well, actually a real good athlete. I shouldn't say pretty. He was a good athlete.
Well, one of my favorite moments of the JBL era was the beer drinking contest between you and Stone Cold. Please talk about that briefly.
I'd love to. I was telling somebody about it today at the beer drinking contest because Vince McMahon didn't want us to do anything physical because Steve was hurt with his neck. Yes. My back was bothering me. So Vince didn't want us to do anything. We're in Detroit. It was Saturday night main event, I believe is what it was. And I threw a glass of beer in Steve's face. Yeah. And as a receipt, he threw a pitcher of beer in my face. Baby face always gets, the bigger bang. Right. It slipped out of his hand and it breaks my nose. And blood's everywhere. And I come back and Vince meets me and goes, what are you doing? I told you nothing's physical. You're not going to take the stunner, but nothing else. Right. And I just looked at Vince. I said, Vince, I'm the dartboard. I didn't hit myself. You blame him.
That's great.
So yeah, it was awesome. Steve was so good to work with, and Steve was so selfless. Steve would, oh my God, man, like that WrestleMania match he did with Kevin Owens. I mean, he made Kevin Owens. Not that Kevin Owens needed it, but man, he could have gone out there and done it a million different ways, but he was so giving to Kevin. And I told him afterwards, I said, man, that was a wonderful thing you did for Kevin. And he was really proud of it. You could tell he was excited that he had done such a great job, but that's how Steve is. Steve's a very giving guy.
Yes.
That's awesome. John, thank you for sharing that with us.
Oh yeah.
Hey, I got a buddy of mine, loved you guys when you were APA, but he wanted to know how tough and a bad dude was Farouk.
I've always said if there's a dictionary and you have the word man in it and Ron's picture isn't beside it, you better take your dictionary back for its refund. That dude was a man. I mean, just a man. 3-time All-American at Florida State, runner-up for the Heisman Trophy as a nose tackle. Bobby Bowden said he was the best football player he ever coached. That included Deion Sanders. I mean, yeah. Ron was once-in-a-lifetime athlete. He benched 225 48 times with the Cleveland Browns. Jeez. He broke Lyle Alzato's NFL rookie record. I mean, he was a world-class bencher, and he was legitimate, incredibly tough guy. Ron just had a presence. Nobody tried him. Ron was the nicest guy in the world. He worked stiff like I did, a bunch of guys did back in the day, but he took it the exact same way. He never complained, never. When Ron would walk into a room, I'll say this all the time. I was at an event the other day, and Mike Singletary walked into the room. And Mike's an older guy now, and not that big. But you knew when he walked in, somebody important had walked in. Whether you knew him or not, you knew that was somebody important. Ron's like that. When Ron walks in a room, you realize that's somebody important. Whether you know him or not, that's somebody important.
Wow. Fun question to follow up to that. How much did you guys sit back and talk football? Y'all both played college football. How much off camera or hanging out on the road, whatever? How much did you guys talk football, you and Rondell?
We still do. When they lost to, I think Jackson State or whoever it was earlier in the year, I don't rib Ron about football. I don't text him and say, hey, what happened in the game or something. I don't do that. But I text him about something else. that same day. And I forgot that they just lost to this team that used to be basically D1 AA.
Right.
And he texted me back with about 8 texts about why they lost and how bad it was. Ron, I'm sorry. I feel your pain. I know. I hate when my school loses too. We talk football all the time. We love football. I'm doing an appearance with him this weekend, and we'll sit at the table, and what we'll talk nearly the whole time is football. Ron and I love sports, and we love sitting around and talking about sports and all the things that are going on.
Right. Back during your wrestling career, or even today, do you guys get together and watch games, or did you guys watch the Super Bowl together? I mean, well, who were the guys? Because there's a lot of former football players that get into wrestling, but what are some of those stories like? And did y'all watch games together?
Oh yeah, always. We worked so much back then, but we would always have Super Bowl off. We'd wrestle usually an afternoon show and then have the Super Bowl off that night. And that was one of the biggest parties of the year. Guys we had so much fun. But yeah, we would always watch the sports. Now we'd miss a lot of them, because of our work schedule. I missed about probably 10, 12 years of sports, because of our work schedule. You talk about guys during that era. I barely remember them because we were working so much.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So it's fun now to be able to just sit around and watch sports, which I love to do all day. And Ron does the same thing.
Well, I would love to know, and I know a lot of people would too, back in your prime of being a wrestler, what was the day in the life of JBL, the wrestler, like?
The statute of limitations is up, so I think I can say that now. We were, it's Groundhog Day.
Yes.
When we lived in Europe, it was really Groundhog Day, and we'd wrestle every night in the same venue. So we would wrestle, we go out to some bar or a restaurant and stay out till 2 or 3 in the morning, then get up at 10 or 11 o'clock, work out, then go to the arena, wrestle, do it all over again. And when we were at WWE, it was basically the same. You'd wrestle somewhere, you'd either drive 4 or 5 hours to the next town, sleep as long as you could, get up, go to the gym, get to the arena, do it all over again. It wasn't a glamorous lifestyle. It was a lot of fun because we didn't have internet, and so all we had was each other. And so that's why you hear the great road stories about when we were there, because we didn't have the ability to get on our phone and check news or be on social media. We didn't have social media.
Right. And a quick follow-up to that, how much training was involved? You said going to the gym. How often would you stay? How long would you stay in the gym every day?
45 minutes to an hour. I've always been just I'm a very simple guy. So is Ron as far as the gym is. I think multi-joint compound movements, just like Arnold and Franco were pretty successful with what they did. And people add a lot of bells and whistles to it, but they always go back to multi-joint compound movements. And it's not rocket science. You train hard and you eat decent and you get bigger muscles.
Yeah. Well, we got to take another short break. And when we come back, we are going to finish up the interview with John Bradshaw Layfield right here on Time 100.9. Guess what? You don't want to miss it. Since 1999, residents of Tuscaloosa has depended on this butcher shop and grocery store. I'm talking about South's Finest Meats. With their specialty meats and fresh to frozen bulk vegetables, you can prepare delicious home-cooked meals all week long. At South's Finest Meats, customer service is their number one priority, and when you shop with them, you can expect to be treated like an MVP. Go by and check out South's Finest Meats at 3201 10th Avenue right there in Tuscaloosa. South's Finest Meats, the official sponsor of the Stingray Show. Residents of Tuscaloosa, are you guys upsizing, downsizing, looking for college housing, or even relocating for your job right here to Tuscaloosa? If that's the case, then you need to contact Celeste Hagler, owner and operator of First Class Real Estate South Home Group. She can help you with the buying, selling, and investment needs throughout the state of Alabama. You can contact Celeste at 205-861-5698. Reach out to Celeste again at 205-861-5698 and schedule a consultation to discuss your real estate goals and to live where you love in the state of Alabama. Are you guys in the mood for community goods and great barbecue? That's what you'll find at the Coker Market, located in Coker, Alabama at the four-way intersection off of County Road 140. Their hours of operation are Wednesday through Saturday, 11 a.m. until 7 p.m., and their menu items include the Midnight, which is smoked ham, smoked pork, Swiss cheese, Creole mustard, mayonnaise, and a pickle, grilled on French bread. That sandwich is absolutely amazing. Make sure you go and check out the Coker Market right there at the four-way intersection in Coker for amazing food and community goods.
Hey, Jim.
talk about a feud that really, really helped the career of someone else. Talk about your feud, please, with John Cena, and especially the I Quit match.
Yeah, the I Quit match was something I was very anxious to get done because I had wrestled John on the loop, and I knew how good he was. And I knew the world was going to see that, but they hadn't seen it yet. And I wanted to have that I Quit match with him because it was such a hardcore blood and guts style match to show that he could do it, because I knew he could do it. Right. And I was so proud when he was able to be on that stage and show that his ability. And, you know, I was fortunate to be there. I'm glad I was. I take no credit for any part of his career. He would have made it anyway, but I certainly am glad I'm the guy at least that was able to hand in the torch.
You know, to follow up with the whole John Cena thing, we won't chase this rabbit long, but you know, I've always heard rumors and fun stuff that it would have been so much easier for him to be a bad guy and change things, but it just wasn't possible. I mean, you know more of his life than we ever will, but what was that poor man going through, John Cena going through with having that pressure and all the Make-A-Wishes, you know, almost daily and everything else? I think if I heard that correctly, he's done more Make-A-Wishes than anybody now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, by far. I think he's like at 650 or some incredible number that. He gave $1 million to social equality just a few years ago. John is just a wonderful human being, and he got the business right away. And when he'd come out, you know, half the arena would be chanting, "Let's go Cena," half the arena would be chanting, "Cena sucks." But everybody was chanting something, and he understood that. The easy thing would be to turn heel. The long-term thing would be to stay exactly what he did. He was selling some insane number, like 40% of the merchandise at one point. And at the point I checked, it was, I don't know where it's fluctuated throughout his career, but it was him. I mean, he was the one selling tickets. He was the one selling merchandise. He knew what was best for his long-term. The Rock was the same way. You remember in Toronto when he was against Hulk Hogan? The easiest thing for The Rock to have done would be to turn heel for the local crowd. When the whole crowd turned on Rock and cheered Hogan, he knew it was a global audience and he didn't do it. That really takes a smart guy who has a grasp of where his audience reach is. And John Cena is much the same way. I think that's one of the reasons those two guys have had so much success everywhere else.
Well, I want to talk about your career real quick. Obviously, with the JBL thing and the Texas Tycoon, you obviously came out in the big limo. But there's been a lot of, there was graffiti on it. A couple of times it has been destroyed. So really, how many limos did you go through during your wrestling career?
It wasn't just limos. It was hats and suits, too. Yes. So I always had a nice suit I would wear, and I had a gimmick stunt suit. But I would keep at TV in case I had to do something where things were going to end up all over me, which they did quite often. So I would always change that suit, and I'd bring another. Once it got ruined, I'd bring another cheaper suit to replace the one. And hopefully people didn't realize that I was wearing something that cost about $47 out there on set. But same with the hat. I can't tell you how many times Eddie Guerrero screwed up my hat or somebody else put something in my hat. I mean, it was almost weekly that something happened to me, my suit, my hat, or my limousine.
Gotcha.
You think you'd have better security than that at these WWE events. I was constantly vandalized, me personally and my stuff.
If you had to guess how much money the company spent in merchandise, or for your wardrobe, I should say, it just hats alone. If you had to put a price on it,
wow, what would you guess? I would have. That'd be hard to say because you'd have to go through the hats. How much were they each? Probably about $100 each. And how many did they destroy? Maybe 20. Probably 20 suits that were probably $400 or $500, something like that. I think you can find the number, somewhat. The limousines. I don't know how we were destroyed. Probably 4 or 5 limousines in different ways. I think Stone Cold probably destroyed a lot more stuff than Guy got destroyed as being the villain. He was destroying cars and rings and everything else. He was having a lot more fun. Of course, he was the one doing the destroying. I was the one getting destroyed.
Did you ever get to destroy anything?
I don't think I ever did. I don't think I ever got to be on the other side of that butt whooping that came when somebody got to make fun of somebody and somebody ended up embarrassed. It was usually just me getting embarrassed.
Right. At WrestleMania 25, you ultimately, after losing to Rey Mysterio, grabbed the mic and said, "I quit." What ultimately led to that decision of you quitting the WWE?
My back. I'd hurt my back a few years earlier. I actually broke it in a match and had to retire. And I probably should have never came back. Now, I'm glad I did come back because I got to do a storyline with Chris Jericho and with Shawn Michaels, two guys I really admire. And then at the end with Rey Mysterio, I had so many people help me over the course of my career. So when it came my time to retire, I'm not just going to ride off in the sunset, certainly not a hero. I wanted to find somebody that I could give whatever equity that JBL had and give as much of it to them as I could. And that was the love and respect I had for Rey Mysterio. Because I love Rey and because I respect Rey as a person, human being, everything. He's a wonderful guy. But also my love and respect for Eddie Guerrero and that association with Eddie.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about something that's happened recently for you. Talk about what it meant to you to be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame, please.
Well, Vince McMahon called me, and he said, "Hey, I want you to come to the Hall of Fame." And I said, "Yeah, whatever you need, boss." And he goes, "You're going in it." I told him, in that case, I can make it.
Right. But what did it mean to you to be inducted?
My whole life, I wanted to be a wrestler. I remember my youngest memories with my grandfather watching wrestling and watching Fritz von Erich. And so for the end, the culmination of that journey, my grandfather passed away before I ever got a chance to wrestle. But for that whole journey to come to fruition with being in the Hall of Fame, that's for me a dream come true. I mean, it's just when I look around and I see people like Bruno Sammartino and Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan and Undertaker and Stone Cold, Shawn Michaels and Buddy Rogers. And I look at that and realize I think they made a mistake. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I shouldn't be buying a ticket to come look at these guys' statue, but it's an incredible honor to be in there. Words would not even suffice. I don't know the right words to say how grateful I am to be in the Hall of Fame.
JBL, I'm just going to ask you, for your personal opinion, who is your top 4 guys? Who's your Mount Rushmore of guys that you just think are the greatest wrestlers of all time?
I think the top, 2 or 3 are easy. I think Bruno Sammartino. Nobody can sell off the Garden 187 straight times. That's something he was the cornerstone the WWE was built on. Buddy Rogers was the hottest heel in the world. And, he took the title off the right heel, but what a run Sammartino had. I mean, that will never be equal. And Hulk Hogan, Hulkamania was what gave this rise to this entire WrestleMania that's going on. It's just incredible what Hulk Hogan meant to this business. And then I think you get into some gray areas. Where do you put Stone Cold and The Rock and Shawn Michaels, Ric Flair and Undertaker? I think, getting to 4 people, just 4 people is pretty tough. And Jack Briscoe, where do you put Jack Briscoe? Who was a great Harley Race, great NWA champions. I mean, there's been some wonderful champions. To me, it's really hard to narrow it down to 4, but it's hard for me to argue in the top 4 that you should have Bruno and Hulk. And probably Stone Cold. Then I start saying then probably so it's tough for me. It's a wonderful debate. I'd be happier listing a top 10 than I would a top 4 because 4 is pretty tough.
Right. Well, obviously, we've got a lot of stuff coming up. What is in the future for JBL?
Well, you're down there in Alabama, which I understand Conrad Thompson, but hadn't he bought the state by now? I think Billionaire Connie, is pretty much owns the southern United States right now. So, I have a fun podcast I do with Gerald Briscoe. We have a lot of fun interviewing old guys and like us, as contemporaries. And that's fun. That's fun for me. Mm-hmm. My biggest thing I want to do in the next however long I have on this earth is I work with this wonderful group in Memphis. I've worked with some of the worst child poverty in the world down in East Africa, Malawi, Tanzania, Zimbabwe. I've worked in the slums of Mumbai and Delhi, and there's a lot of inequities in the world that are brought about by low-income areas. And I want to find a remedy for that. Martin Luther King, the great Dr. King, that was his great passion as he got older because he realized the same thing we talk about, say, immigration. You can fix certain things, but you got to break generational cycles. Right. And that's the hardest thing with low-income, at-risk areas is breaking generational cycles to really make a difference in these kids' lives and eradicate poverty in certain areas. And I think it can be done. And I hope that the next 40 or 50 years, if I get that long, or 4 or 5, or however long it is, that's what work I get to do and hopefully have some success with it.
So guys, hold that thought because we've got one final segment left with JBL. That's on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Stingray Show. We will be back in a flash with the final segment of JBL. Well, obviously, we are right here in the state of Alabama. Do you happen to have a favorite match that you had with anyone in the state of Alabama?
No, but I'll tell you a story. Ron was sitting backstage and I was JBL. And I was out there and I was cutting a promo on the crowd, doing my heel stuff. And there were some police officers there, and they were kind of snickering, and they were telling guys that he's really good. He's good at what he does. And then I said something about Paul Bear Bryant, and literally the cop says, he needs to shut his damn mouth.
That's great. That's great.
Fantastic.
I used to sing not the national anthem, God Bless America, just as a joke. When I was overseas, because the Sheik used to do it, all this, don't chant USA. And so I just did it one time as a joke, and the place almost rioted. It was unbelievable. And I was doing it as a joke, and I realized how much heat it got. So I would make Tony Chimmel the ring announcer, carry the flag around, and he would wave it. And I would sing God Bless America. Well, of course, they want to throw stuff at the flag, and Chimmel would have it. So he'd be wearing his nice suit. They just cover him in beer, Cokes, everything.
That's great.
Every single night. It was awesome.
That is great.
I was in Northern Ireland one time, and some kid had a sign that says JBL, you suck, or something like that. So I grabbed the sign from him, and I go to the ring, and here comes my tag team partner, who was Kurt Angle at the time. And so Kurt gets up there and he goes, what's that sign? Well, I hadn't a chance to do anything with it because Kurt's music played. And I said, man, some guy wrote this sign about me. Can you believe this? He goes, you mean to tear it up? I said, yes. So he tore the sign up And when he did, this kid started crying on the front row. And I started laughing. And Kurt looked at me, and I thought he was going to punch me. He goes, "Did you get that from that kid?" I said, "Yeah, but you tore it up." He goes, "You're an asshole." He goes, "You're a bad guy." And so now I've got the whole crowd, and my tag team partner all booing me.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Well, before we let you go, is there any chance that we could get one final wrestling god from you, please, sir?
Well, you got to understand, there are wrestling Hall of Famers. There are icons. There's even legends, but there's one and only one. Wrestling God.
That is fantastic, man.
Oh, JBL, you're hitting home runs and now you're hitting grand slams. Tell us one final funny story that you always enjoy telling from your days in wrestling.
Well, that's no pressure at all. Tell us a funny story. We had so much fun. We had so much fun with, and I've told this story a million times. It was again with Kurt Angle as my tag team partner. And Big Show was, I would always call Big Show Shrek. And I go, "Hey, Shrek." He goes, "Come along, donkey." He called me donkey. I love Show. Thank God he's a gentle giant.
Yes.
So we're in somewhere over in Europe, and I'm in the ring with Kurt Angle. And again, with my pal Kurt Angle, who really is my pal. I love Kurt. And Big Show's coming to the ring. All of a sudden, halfway up the aisle, it says, "Hey, now, you're a rock star." And Kurt Angle says to me, he goes, "What is that?" I said, "That's Shrek's theme music." And Kurt says, "He's going to kill us." And I said, "Don't worry. I did it. I'm going to take the blame for this, okay?" He goes, "Well, thank God." So Big Show is now, he's running as we're speaking. He's running to the ring. He comes to the ring and he goes, "I swear to God, Kurt Angle did every bit of it. I had nothing to do with it." And I jumped out of the ring. Big Show beat me half to death.
That's
He got me in the corner. And I said, "All right, go ahead, you big ogre. Go ahead and hit me." And he hit me so hard with that I thought he broke my sternum and everything inside my body. And I said, "All right, okay. Are we over being mad?"
Oh, that's great.
He has got me back a few times. It is a love relationship. It's not a love-hate. I love Big Show.
JBL asked Eric Bischoff this question when he was on our show, and I always kind of enjoy picking you guys' brain on this, but who is someone that you have met that you were shocked that they were a wrestling fan? They came up and they started talking to you. Was there another celebrity or a politician or somebody, but who was it that came up to you like, "Oh, wow, they watch, they know what's going on"?
No doubt about it. I was on the shuttle from D.C. to New York. All the guys were. And Bill Bradley was on it, the old New York Nick and the senator. And Hillary Clinton was on it when she was I guess she was a senator at the time. Anyway,
right.
She's sitting in the exit aisle, and she has the Secret Service in front and behind, and I'm literally the one seat right next to her across the aisle in the exit aisle. So it's literally just like me and her. There's nobody on her inside. There's nobody on my inside. So it's just kind of me and her. And she leans over and says, "Where are you guys at tonight?" And I thought, "You guys are kidding me. There's no way." And I said, we're at the Garden. We're flying up to Madison Square Garden. She goes, "Oh, man, me and Bill used to go watch the UWF with Dr. Death and Bill Watts."
Wow.
She starts telling me all these names. And when she first said she was a fan, I thought, come on, she's a politician. There's no way.
Right.
Then she starts telling me all these names that there's no way you would know unless she was a fan. And so I said, "Would you like to come to the event tonight?" And she said, "Oh, I'd love to." She goes, "I've been wrestling forever." She goes, "But I got so many appearances I've got to do. I can't." But it was unreal. She talked wrestling with me the whole flight, and then when we landed all the way to baggage claim, she wanted to talk wrestling.
Wow!
Yeah, that was shocking to me. I didn't expect that.
What was something that she asked you that just kind of took you back a little bit?
Mainly about Bill Watts' territory, about Dr. Death, about Bill himself, about Junkyard Dog, about all these guys that she watched. She just would bring up the names and what she saw and how her and Bill would sneak into the matches. And it was really cool.
Well, JBL, look, man, we really, really want to thank you for this interview. It has been fantastic. And real quick, before we let you go, is there anything that you would like to plug, give a shout out to, or tell people how they can follow you on social media?
Yeah, absolutely. The only thing I really like to plug, the reason I'm on social media, is Memphis Inner City Rugby. We're doing our fundraiser in May, and we've got some really cool gifts to auction off. We could set up a eBay auction site. We got a title belt signed by Undertaker and Stone Cold and Booker T and some other guys. Ruby Riott was kind enough to, unbelievable, she gave me her WrestleMania boots that she'd had made. So we got some pretty cool stuff we're going to auction off and try to raise some money for these kids. And that's the main focus I have. If I'm going to plug something, I'm not going to, that's what I want to plug.
Gotcha.
And I'm not going to say anything nice about Gerald Briscoe. He's from Oklahoma. You know, Trump was right about the wall. He was wrong about the place. We need the wall between Texas and Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Keep all the Briscoes out of the promised land.
Right. Well, look, man.
Let me tell you, before you go, let me tell you one story. So Dick Murdoch was a great wrestler. I was tag team partners with Dick Murdoch. They talk about an honor. You know, Cornette says Dick Murdoch is to wrestling what a trick shot artist is to pull. You know, he'd get there, but he'd get there in ways you wouldn't believe. And so Dick, one night, he never let me drive. I would have to hand him Coors Light. And I'd hand him a Coors Light going down the road. He had this song that he made by Six Pack Productions with Dusty Rhodes. Take Me Drunk, I'm Home was the song. And it was horrible. He'd sing it over and over and over. And I'd hand him beer and he'd throw some of them out the window. And I finally realized I had to hand him with the mouth to him. So finally I'm handing him beer. Anyway, one morning he gets up and he's sick. I don't know if he's hungover, sick, whatever. And we had to go to Fort Lawton, Oklahoma. And he goes, "Kid, you're driving." So he's sitting over the passenger seat and he was never like this. He was just, he was always white as a ghost. You know, Black Bart said he had a body of upside down light bulb. You know, Dick had the worst body. Tough man. So I said, "Dick, you mean to pull over?" He goes, No, kid, keep driving. So I said, "Dick, you mean to pull over?" He goes, "Keep driving, kid." We got up to the Red River to cross into Oklahoma. And I said, "Dick, you need me to pull over?" He goes, "Keep driving." Got across the Red River. He got up and threw up. He got out and threw up all over Oklahoma and got back in the truck. He said, "Don't ever throw up in Texas, kid."
Oh, that's great.
That's a true story. Unbelievable. I'm still laughing about it.
Well,
That's
every
great.
night Dick would say, "Go ahead and start the match, kid. When it turns to shit, tag me in. I'll straighten it out."
Oh,
well, JBL, hopefully we can have you on during the college football season.
I love college football, and I watch almost every dang game. So I'd love to come back on and talk college football with you guys.
we'll
All
do
right,
it.
man.
Absolutely.
Yes, well, you have a great rest of your evening, and we will do it again soon, my friend.
Thanks, guys. Great meeting you.
All right, you too. Thank you. So, guys, that is going to wrap up this edition of the Stingray Show. We hope that you have thoroughly enjoyed it there with JBL. We will see you guys on down the line, and on down the line is the next time that the Stingray Show is going to be on, which will be tomorrow evening. Have a wonderful rest of your Monday evening, a wonderful Tuesday. We will see you right back here tomorrow evening, right here on the Stingray Show for more amazing fun.